Am I as good looking as I think I am?
I wonder where normal people find friends.
Where would I find out how to be a good dad?
Should I be taking my kids to church?
What is up with my nose hair?
Crossroads Church. Real people asking real questions.
Crossroads Church is a community of people across the country, trading isolation for friendship, insecurity for hope. We're pursuing God in the midst of our mess, a God who loves us and takes us on incredible adventures. Check us out.
Hi, my name is Daniel. Mi nombre es Daniel. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, this guy has a cool accent. Where is he from? I'll tell you, I'm from Ohio. Thanks for asking. Hey, I'm here to tell you that for a whole week in May, we are going to be out in our communities serving through what we call Go Local. Go Local is serving our communities for a whole week anywhere you live. You might be asking, what exactly do we do? Let me show you. We're gonna be doing construction projects, things like building a wheelchair ramp, remodeling, a little bit of drywall. You might even get to use one of these bad boys. Not much into power tools? I get it. We have plenty of places like this all over the country where it's safe for kids and families to come outdoors, a little gardening, a little mulching, a little trimming up, lots of things to do for everybody. Hey, we're gonna be doing all sorts of projects. For example, right here, we're gonna be painting all the walls. Maverick, you ready to paint? Come on. Good job. Hey, are you ready to do this with me? I think you are. And all you need to do is pull out your phone, go to crossroads.net/GoLocal. Sign up, boom, you're ready to go. I know you can do it. Hey, I'm looking forward to seeing you in May. Vámonos a servir.
Welcome to Crossroads. My name's Lena Schuler, and I'm the Crossroads Anywhere Community Pastor. And this weekend, we're in Columbus, Ohio at the Whetstone Community Center, which is one of our 11 Go Local projects right here in Columbus, one of 850 projects that are happening all over the country where we are out serving our communities, volunteering, and being a blessing to the cities that we live in and we work in. And I'm so honored and glad to be part of the church this weekend where we get to do something with our faith and actually impact the world, impact our city, impact our very own neighborhood. And so today, we have something extra special planned for you as you're joining us online because our locations are closed today to give all of the people who would usually sit in a building an opportunity to be outside of a building and to be serving and volunteering wherever they are. And so we're gonna start right now with worship. Worship is a way that we ascribe worth to God. And so as we're volunteering, as we're serving, it's a way that we tell God we believe in his words when he says that the church should bless the world, and we get to worship him that way. Another way that we worship him is by telling him who he is and telling him what he means to us through song. And so we're gonna do that together right now. And I would just invite you to join us in not just listening to these words, but singing these words with us.
kingdom is at hand. Rejoice because his peace will rule the land. Rejoice because our God became a man. Sing hallelujah, what a savior. It is finished, it is done. Heaven's love poured out on us. Separated, now we're one. Sing hallelujah, what a savior. It is finished, it is done. Heaven's love poured out on us. Separated, now we're one. Sing hallelujah, what a savior. Yeah, 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 yeah. Today's the day he's made, let us rejoice. Today's the day he's made. I'm gonna rejoice and I'll be glad in it. I'm lifting my voice. Today's the day he's made. I'm gonna rejoice, yeah, I'll be glad in it. I'm lifting my voice. Today's the day he's made. I'm gonna rejoice, yeah, I'll be glad in it. I'm lifting my voice. Today's the day he's made. I'm gonna rejoice, yeah, I'll be glad in it. Sing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. It is done.
Come on, can we sing that again? Our chains are gone. Our chains are gone. Our debt is paid. The cross has overthrown the grave. For Jesus' blood that set us free means death to death and life for me.
Love never fails me or leads me astray. It always holds on, never separates. Your love never leaves or walks another way. It always pursues, it's the reason I sing. I sing 'cause you're good, yes. I sing of your kindness. I sing 'cause you're faithful, you never let go. When I'm on my own, I'm never alone. When I'm on my own, I'm never alone. A love for the empty, the broken and shamed. You sent love with purpose, you gave him a name. Oh, you tore out your heart just to walk in my place. Now I'm a child of God with your blood in my veins. And I sing 'cause you're good, yes. I sing of your kindness. And I sing 'cause you're faithful, you never let go. When I'm on my own, I'm never alone. When I'm on my own, I'm never alone. And even when I stumble and though I may fall, even when I'm broken and forced to crawl, and even when I'm empty with nothing to show, I sing 'cause you're faithful, you never let go. And even when I doubt you and though I can't see, and even when the future is a mystery, even when I find myself brought to my knees, I sing 'cause you're faithful, you're so good to me. When I'm on my own, but I'm never alone. When I'm on my own, I'm never alone. No, I am never alone. No, I sing 'cause you're good, yes. I sing of your kindness. And I sing 'cause you're faithful, you never let go. Thank you, Lord.
If you enjoyed that music, if you enjoyed those songs, you can get more of that on Spotify or any of your music platforms. Just check out Crossroads Music. And we actually have a brand new song coming out soon that I think that you'll enjoy. Well, today we're in Columbus, Ohio for Go Local, and we're at a project where you'll see kids and parents serving alongside of one another, families serving with friends. And it's a beautiful picture of what God has always intended for the family. It's a beautiful picture for parents teaching their kids about the character of God and what it means to serve, what it means to volunteer, what it means to give of ourselves. You know, when I was growing up, one of the things that my parents taught me in a way that we served together was we were generous. My parents taught me that God is a generous God, and everything that we have is God's to begin with. And so what that looked like is when my brother would hop on my bike and I'd get angry and go, "That's my bike," my dad would be quick to go, "Whose bike is it?" And I'd go, "It's God's bike." He'd go, "That's right, it's God's bike. So your brother can ride your bike because it's God's to begin with." And so I grew up learning and practicing that God is generous and everything I have is His. Therefore, when He asks for something back, when He asks for me to be giving, for me to be generous, it's a no-brainer and it feels lightweight and easy because it's all His to begin with. And so if you want to practice what it looks like to give, if you want to practice and try to believe a little bit deeper that God owns everything and it's His to begin with, you could give right now to Crossroads by going to crossroads.net/give and setting up a one-time or recurring gift. And I believe that in the midst of that, you're gonna get to know God's character a little bit better and you'll be shaped in the midst of that. Well, today, our locations are closed all around the country so that people can go out and be the church and serve their neighbors. And there was a woman near and dear to my heart who's a mentor to me. I worked for her for years, and she served like no one else. She spent her life serving other people and putting other people ahead of herself and really being the church day in and day out, what God calls us to do. And so that woman is Kathy Beecham. She passed away earlier this year. And we actually have a message from Kathy that was part of the Strong series that we did back in 2011, where I think you're gonna be invigorated and inspired to want to serve, want to volunteer, want to bless the neighborhood, the community that you live in. And so we're gonna enjoy this right now together.
We're all about the challenge of serving and asking the question of why serving makes us strong. I mean, we trained last week, right? Just like Hannah talked about, we trained, we passed training, and this week we officially become soldiers. Soldiers. And the battlefield that we are soldiers on, we're going to explore that this week. Paul, who was a follower of Jesus, and he wrote letters to a lot of other followers of Jesus in all different towns. And that's what a big part of the New Testament is all about. Well, he talks about what it means to be a soldier of Jesus. And he says it in his letter to Timothy. He says, "Endure hardship with us like a good soldier of Christ Jesus. No one serving as a soldier gets involved in civilian affairs. In fact, he wants to please his commanding officer." Now, before we dive into what it means to be a soldier, I want to introduce you to one of our soldiers, our Crossroads soldiers. Let's take a look at his story.
When I was growing up, serving wasn't a big part of my life until I got more involved in the Boy Scouts. The Scout law, I know, talked about serving others, and on my honor, I will do my best to serve others. Our first Scoutmaster, Mr. Rattray, he would give his time every Monday when we had Boy Scouts at the church, and every month for our monthly campouts, he'd be there, he'd drive us, and he'd coordinate the trips and all that. And I just really appreciated this, all the time he spent with me and the rest of the guys, just teaching us things from Boy Scouts, whether it's knot tying, or he was a big guy into sailing, so he took us on sailing trips and caving and rappelling, and really throughout all that, just taught us how to be men. One of the biggest things was I was in an organization that enabled me to take a trip to a camp in Michigan. This was Camp Minnewanka, And this was an international leadership camp. And that, I would say, was an experience that really altered my life and how I think about serving. The camp really talked to you about a way of living your life, from a spiritual perspective, from a physical perspective, from a mental perspective. And it talked about the importance of service, of servant leadership. And there were students there from all over the world, and from all walks of life, and you really got to do service with these guys. And there was a quote from a book of the founder of this camp, and the quote is, "Never give up until you have released your unused capacity for service and shared your gift with others. One enkindled spirit can set hundreds on fire." As I was listening to this and really internalizing this, it really made me think that as an individual, we may not think that we can make a difference, but we really can. And from there, it really sparked in me the fact that even though I'm one person, I do have gifts that God's given me, and I can make a difference. And I think that really was the spark that's kind of got me on my path to service. I always try and see, where can I make a difference? Where can I add value? I feel like the more I volunteer, the more rooted in the city and rooted in the organization where I'm serving. And it's really through service where you feel community. For me, serving teaches me that God loves us, and He wants us to love our neighbors and love the rest of the world like He loves us. When I serve, I get much more than I give. I realize that it's not about me. I realize that I'm helping a broader community. And for me, I realize that it makes me feel like I'm part of something bigger. I should continue to serve, not out of obligation, but just out of love and my passion for service.
Wow, Justin, thank you so much for being a good soldier. Paul weighs in another letter, this time the letter to Philippians, and he talks a little bit about what it means to be a servant. Let's look at what he says. He says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourself." He says, have the same attitude as Jesus, who, being in his very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant. I don't know about you, but this is hard to do, I think. I mean, consider others better than yourself. I really don't want to do that. I might posture that that's true, but I secretly kind of want to be the best. I grew up in corporate America. I spent 25 years working most of the time for U.S. Bank, 6th largest bank in the country. They're just not big, but they're also high performing. They were when I was there, they still are. And I remember we used to get these industry rankings. They would come every year. And I would love it when we got those. I'd scour through the rankings. And I won't bore you with all the measures banks use to measure top performing banks. But I would look through them, and usually always one of those measures, I'd look and there'd be U.S. Bank's name right there at the top. Number one in one of them. And then all the other key measures, we used to always be top 25 percentile, at least, sometimes top 5, sometimes top 10. But I would get pumped up when I would look at that stuff. It was like, I work for a place that is the best at what we do. I like that. And I just wouldn't get pumped up. I would use this moment to teach about these rankings to all the people that worked on my team, right? I'd explain them, and I'd say, no matter how well we were doing, I'd say, this is the moment we can get better. We can do better this year. I'd call them out to work harder, get higher. We can do better. We can do better. That very industry, the banking industry, one year they named me as one of the top 25 women in banking. Whoa. That felt pretty good. That felt like pretty close to being the best, right? Oh, and these ranking things. The industry would rank us once a year, but I mean, our company, we ranked ourselves every week. I mean, it was like every week. And I never wanted to be on the bottom of any company ranking list. I mean, never. And my group, no. I didn't expect them. I didn't define success as being number one, but I'd like them to be at least top 5, top 10, top 5, top 3, probably. You know, if you hit that, then that's success. I mean, I didn't want to be on the bottom of any list inside the company. I mean, I didn't even want to be last in March Madness. I mean, last feels bad. It feels like humiliating. It feels like I'm embarrassed. It feels like I'm pretty stupid. And then let's look again at what Paul says to the Philippians. I mean, just look at this. He says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourself. He says, we're supposed to have the attitude. He's speaking to me here. He says, Kathy, you're supposed to have the attitude of Jesus, who, being in the very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but he made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant. Nothing. Guess what? Nothing means last, right? You can't get much further last, the bottom, than nothing. I mean, think about this story, really. I mean, the story of Jesus. He's God now. We're not talking about banking. We're talking God, like powerful. And he comes into our world, and if we use the military terms, right, he would be the general. I mean, he'd be the top guy. I mean, he called himself king. I mean, he would be the guy in charge. And he's coming for the express purpose of recruiting an army, of recruiting soldiers. And he tells us that if we want to join up, if we want to be one of his soldiers, guess what we have to do? We have to lose. We have to wave the right white flag here. We're supposed to surrender. We're supposed to, lay it down. I mean, think about his entrance into the world, right? I mean, all these people that he's come into the world in order to recruit them to be his followers, they've been waiting years. They want this powerful ruler. I mean, they want a guy that'll come in, turn some heads, take some prisoners, get it done, free them. And he disappoints everybody. I mean, he comes as a kid. Jeepers. Last, least. A piece of the answer to why serving makes us strong is captured right there. See, we got served first. God, Jesus, didn't just tell us to serve. He came. He took on all of our limits. He served us first. And our challenge to serve, it's rooted in that. It's the fact that we were served first, and therefore we can serve. Now, you know, when I think about this whole best, least, want to be the greatest, don't really want to be the least, I get some comfort when I hear the stories about how Jesus' friends are, because I'm thinking they were with him 3 years. I mean, they saw him, right? And the story goes like this. It's kind of told on him. It's right at the end of Jesus' life. I mean, he's about to be killed. I mean, it's about over. He knew what was coming, and he knew it wasn't good. And two of his very favorite guys, two of his very favorite soldiers, James and John, their mother, with these guys in tow, they come to Jesus and they ask him a favor. This is how the story goes. She says, Jesus, when you get to be in your kingdom, now she's thinking kingdom, wealth, honor, prestige, greatest, best, all that. She says, when you are in your kingdom, will you make sure my two sons here, James and John, that they get a special place? We want them to have a place of honor. Well, you can imagine how the other 10 guys felt when they found out what James and John did, right? I mean, they were pissed off. I mean, they were kind of angry at that. I mean, it's like, well, who do they think they are? Why do they get special treatment? I mean, what about us? What about all of us? Really, what that meant was really, what about me, huh? What about me? Well, I probably felt that a zillion times in the corporate world. I mean, I can remember, you know, somebody would get promoted, and I'd be sitting there struggling with, oh my gosh, did they just get moved up a level higher than me. Or, bonuses are supposed to be kept secret. But usually, sometimes they kind of leak out, and you'd hear this number of what somebody got, and you knew what you got, and I knew what I got, and I knew it wasn't like even close, and that must have meant they were more valued this year by the company than I was. Ouch. Or office space. I mean, talk about best least thing, right? Office space. I mean, U.S. Bank must have been through like 3 different office reloads in the years I was there. And I mean, it was like the big, exciting thing. Who was going to get an office with a door on it, and who was going to have a cubicle? And if you already had an office with a door, were you going to get an office with a door that had a window? Or maybe even a view? It was endless, constant, least, best. Who was the most valued? Constantly a part of how I lived. Now, back to James and John. How does Jesus respond to their big hubbub about wanting to be the greatest? Well, the first thing he does, he looks at Mom and he says, Mom, you're asking for places of honor. Well, you have no clue what you're asking for. Because if you really know what that meant for these guys, you probably wouldn't be asking. But then he realizes, the consultants say now, he had a teaching moment, right? I mean, he got his whole team together, got them all there so that some of them couldn't say, well, you told me that, he told me that. I mean, he got them all there. And he told them this. Matthew records it. He says, the rulers in this world, they lord it over those under them. But among you, it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. Well, he just doesn't tell them. He actually shows them. Because right after that conversation, it was that evening, they're going for dinner. And it wasn't just any old dinner. I mean, this was a big dinner. This was like one of the biggest festivals that they had. It was called Passover. And Jesus has got his whole team at dinner. They're still kind of grumbling about what James and John just did. I mean, they're kind of... And they kind of, it used to be customary at that time that they would have somebody would make arrangements at dinner time to have somebody come in and clean them up. Right? Because, I mean, remember, this is no expressways, no paved roads. So their feet would get pretty grimy. And they didn't eat on tables like us. When we come in, there's a table. We kind of can tuck our feet, all the ugliness underneath the table. Well, they didn't eat like that. They actually had these big mattress-like cushions where they would eat. And so what that meant is that somebody's feet was pretty close to somebody's mouth. And so it was really important that they got cleaned up before dinner. And all the disciples are there, and they realize nobody remembered to arrange for somebody to do that. And they weren't going to bring it up. I mean, not after what James and John just did and said, who's going to be the greatest? They're vying. I'm not going to bring it up that we didn't think about that because I might get asked to do it. And my gosh, if you want to be least, that's what you have to do. Clean us up for dinner. So some of you know how the story goes, right? Jesus does it. He picks up this towel and a basin, and he cleans them all up, every one of them. Even the guy who was going to turn traitor on him in the next couple hours, he cleans them up. And then just so they don't miss the point, he tells them the significance of what he just did. John records it. He says, you call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, because that's what I am. And since I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. I have given you an example to follow. So do as I have done to you. See, Jesus, he picks up a towel. He gives us a sign, right? We're still talking about it now. And with this towel, he redefines what greatness is. Now, as I started thinking about times in my own personal life, this whole paradox of great, least, wanting to be the best, not wanting to be on the bottom, blah, 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 I immediately remembered a situation where I learned this lesson pretty well, actually. It happened when I was very young, so a long time ago. It was just as I was coming out of high school. I actually went and I became a nun. I went in the convent. I even had a nun name. See, can you pick me out there? I'm the one in black. Can you see? I'm actually that one on the left in the back row. That's me, Sister Kathleen Marie. I made it 3 years, and then they asked me to leave. Now, don't misread this. I mean, I had absolutely a pure intention about wanting to go there. I was sincere. My family didn't force me into it or anything. In fact, they were less than enthusiastic about it. I mean, I wanted to live my life this way. This is how I wanted to make a difference in the world. I wanted to serve others. I wanted to teach kids. I was willing to take a vow of celibacy. I was willing to take a vow of poverty. I was willing to do all that. But I only got half of the equation right. See, when I went in, I went with a group, and you saw the group that went with me. They were other leaders, actually, in my senior class in high school. A bunch of us went in. And it was the 60s. Some of you weren't even born yet, but in the 60s, it was a lot of change. There was a lot of revolution. And in the Catholic Church, we had that too. I mean, it was like Vatican II. So this is post-Vatican II. We're all fired up about how we could change. And you know what we thought? We thought that if we went in the convent, we could actually change the church. And while we were at it, we could educate these good sisters about what American women were really like these days, right? I mean, we didn't respect them at all. I mean, I thought the people above me that were in authority over me, I thought they were kind of old-fashioned. I thought they were outdated. I mean, we did everything we could. I mean, we delighted in breaking the rules. I mean, a little group of us, I mean, we'd go in the cemetery behind the convent. I mean, and we'd sneak smokes, you know. And we got our family and our friends. I mean, they would kind of smuggle out. I mean, we were college kids. They would kind of smuggle alcohol into us. And I mean, it's amazing to me that I lasted 3 years. I mean, they probably should have gotten rid of me a lot sooner than they did. I obviously did not get Jesus' definition of what greatness was. See, I didn't get the surrender part. I had the serve part, but I didn't have the surrender part. I mean, Jesus knew. I mean, I was full of as much self-ambition and vain conceit as you could be full of, right? And Jesus knew how hard it was going to be for us to break free from that. So that's why he commands us to serve. That's why he tells us we have to. Because he knows that's the only way we're going to get free. It's the only way we'll get free from always feeling this need to promote ourselves, protect our position, climb higher, do more. I mean, that's how we get free of that. He knows that if we say no to that whole game and we say yes to somebody else's stuff, somebody else's agenda, somebody else's needs, somebody else's reputation, we'll experience a freedom and a joy that comes like from nothing else. Now, I obviously did not learn that in the convent, but I did learn it. I learned it actually in the corporate world. I mean, I learned what it meant to submit to authority. I became very respectful of others because I was surrounded with people who were very talented, and I could begin to see what it meant to see myself as less than somebody else. And I learned loyalty, because in those 23 years that I worked for U.S. Bank, there were good times and there were bad times, and I learned what it meant as a leader to guard the company's reputation even when it was painful and not very comfortable to do it. And, by the way, I had a really good boss. For about half of my career at U.S. Bank, I had an unbelievable boss. And you know why he was so good? He was so good because he served me. He taught me what serving is because he served me. He gave me opportunities to grow. He coached me. He built into me. His whole focus was to help me grow, improve my reputation, get opportunities in the company. He helped me grow. And by doing that, he taught me what it was like to serve. And I suddenly figured out that my job with my people on my team was very simple. It was to serve them like he served me. My whole job was to try to help them be successful, to build into them, to coach them, to have their backs if they had a mistake, to help build their reputations. It was to give them opportunity. And once I figured that out, my job got pretty easy, actually. It got easy and it got hard. But I learned what it means to be a servant. Now, I also learned that deciding to serve and being a servant are two different things. See, when you decide to serve, meaning you decide to do good for somebody, you decide to give money to some cause, you decide to give your time, volunteering, any of those things, they're good, but see, you're still in charge. You know, you're deciding when you're going to do that. When you're a servant, you give up being in charge. You give up being in charge of your time. You give up being in charge of your money. You give up being in charge of your talents or your gifts. That's why what Jesus is talking about here, when he talks about serving, it isn't about just doing good. I mean, that's why his challenge is so radical. It's this. It's the white flag. It's the surrender thing. It's the laying down of our lives for somebody else, and it's not being in charge anymore, as much as I liked it. What this means is that you simply make yourself, your time, your money, your talents available to whoever or whatever circumstance you find yourself in that very moment. We usually are asked to serve out of the gifts that we've been given. And we make those gifts available to others. Now, you won't find me very often choosing to serve someone by making them a casserole. My family's here today, and they know why. I'm just not very good at cooking. I never was. I don't really like it. I've been served that way. There's been lots of people who've made homemade soup and done food for me, but I'm just not very good at it. So there's not very many times when I'm called to serve that way. And you won't find me serving others through my musical talents. I have none. Lip sync, that's all I can do. But my gosh, are we not blessed as a community that we've got some people who have decided to serve us here at Crossroads through their musical talents? I mean, oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, Robbie, Josh, Erica, Keenan, any of those guys could be doing their music, probably making a whole lot more than they're getting rewarded with by doing music here and serving us. That's amazing. So I'm not usually served in either of those areas, but I do have some gifts. So as I was thinking about this message, I kind of paid special attention of the times that I got a chance to serve in the couple weeks leading up to this. And I had a lot of opportunities. But one stands out. And did I tell you that when you make yourself available to serve others with whatever gifts you have, it tends never to come at a convenient time? Remember, Paul said that if you're soldiers of Christ, you're going to endure hardship. It never comes at a convenient time. So it didn't come at a convenient time. It's Saturday afternoon, 4 or 5 o'clock. I've got a dinner commitment that night. I'm kind of finishing up home projects, and I get a phone call. I answer the phone, and Kathy, it's LaShonda. I go, LaShonda, hi. She says, what do you know about payday lenders? Now, I'm a banker. I know a lot about payday lenders. I go, LaShonda, why are you asking? Now, see, I know LaShonda. I've known her for a couple years. She actually was a resident of what's called the Gardens of Greenup, which is a program that I'm involved with that has women, it allows women and their children who are coming either out of homeless situations or out of the court system to come and live there with subsidized rent while they're working on their own job plan, helping them get education with the goal that they would graduate from the gardens and be on their own. Well, LaShonda had graduated like a year ago. I mean, she did great. She got the best job she has ever had and making more money than she ever has made in her life to this point. Unbelievably good. She left the gardens. She rented her house. She had her and her kids were together now. I mean, they were like doing it. So I'm kind of surprised. I'm going, LaShonda, why are you asking me about payday lenders? And then the tears came. And she just starts crying and she says, oh, Kathy, she says, I've gone backwards. She said, I still have my job. She says, I still have my job. I haven't lost that. But she said, I got my credit cards run up again. I mean, I was out of debt when I left the gardens. And I think I probably took on more rent expense than I should have. I should have just gotten an apartment. I shouldn't have tried to rent a house. And she's going, I just feel, and then my car died. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm figuring a payday lender might be the only way I can do this. I got to get my car fixed. I can't get to work if I don't get my car fixed. And she's crying and she's saying, and I feel like such a failure. I can't believe I'm in this spot. I made such progress. I'm going backwards. Oh my gosh. And her heart is breaking. And I'm listening to this and I'm going, LaShonda, time out here. You are not a failure. You have your job. You just made one mistake. You just got in a little deeper on rent than you should have. But that doesn't mean you're a failure. And see, she believes in Jesus. I believe in Jesus. So I said, let's pray right now on the phone. And we prayed for protection against all those critical thoughts she was having about herself and her negative feelings. And I'm a banker. I could help her figure out what her best strategy was, right? I could serve. So lots of times, when we make ourselves available, we're called on to serve in these really small, little, ordinary things. But when we're a servant, those little ordinary moments become sacred moments. And what Jesus said right after he washed his feet, he said, if you do this, you will be blessed. Now, he said, do this. He didn't say, know it. He didn't say, believe in it. He said, do it. And if you do it, you'll be blessed. And when blessed is used in Scripture, what blessed means is like what Sarah and Mike's face looked at like during the Thanksgiving food box video. I mean, it's like happy, over the top, exhilarated, full of joy, abundance, freedom. That's what it looks like. And Jesus said, do this, you're going to be blessed. Now, Greg Boyd, national theologian, friend of Crossroads, he's been here a lot. He says this. He says that I've become convinced that remaining aware of God's presence is the single most important task in the life of every follower, soldier of Jesus. I'm convinced that this challenge is implied in our commitment to surrender our life. For the only real life we have to surrender is the one that we live each moment. I love Greg Boyd's definition of love. He says it's ascribing unsurpassable worth to another at a cost to oneself. Now, here's what happens. We are not called to serve to solve the world's problems. And we are not called to serve because it makes us feel good. I mean, we are called to serve Because we're following the leader. We're following the guy who's in charge of this army. And when we follow him, when we love like he loves, when we surrender ourselves and make our gifts available to somebody else, and we give them that message in our surrender that they are the most important, most valuable person in the whole world in God's eyes. When we come under somebody else to serve them, every time we do that, God's army, it gets a little bit healthier. It gets a little stronger, yes. It gets more powerful. I mean, his army, wow. And I don't know about you, but I want to sign up. I want to sign up. I'll wave the white flag. Stand up.
Man, how good was that? I know that right now, Kathy would be so excited that there are people all over the country who this week are choosing to give of their time generously to serve people and organizations and be the church. And so maybe right now you're thinking, man, I know that neighbor who needs their lawn cut and just isn't able to do it. Or man, that organization, I've been thinking about getting involved with them for a while. I just haven't made the move. Or I know this is a big need in my neighborhood and someone's got to step up and do it. I think you're the one to do it. This week, look for an opportunity to serve. And in the midst of it, you'll get to understand and believe deeper in the abundant love of God as a result of it. So hey, I hope that you have a great week serving the people around you. If you want, you can head to crossroads.net/get involved if that's a place that you want to get involved in, a way you might want to serve. And we'll see you back next week, same time, same place for our People Skills series. Have a great week.
For thousands of years, humanity has endured every environment the world has to offer. It has adapted, innovated, and overcome. Yet to this day, it struggles to understand its most complex challenge: people. This species can propel itself to the moon and back, yet fail even the most basic of social cues, transforming into abominations like the close stalker, the office leech,
I had the sickest night last night.
and the dreaded bathroom conversationalist.
Shoes!
But there is hope. Join us as we talk about our pathway to better friendships and relationships as we learn about people skills.